Harsch. I'm reading from a section of The Assassination of Olof Palme, wherein Werner Heisenberg is visiting Zurich to deliver a lecture in the summer of 1944. True event. There was someone in the crowd ready to assassinate him from the OSS, Mo Berg, former Major League Baseball player, who was going to assassinate him if there were indications that he was getting the Nazis closer to the bomb. However, he was not, and the reason was, according to Thomas Powers, a fine investigative journalist and historian, he subverted the program throughout, lied to Hitler's folk, and made it appear that it would be impossible to make a bomb, when all along, of course, he knew that it was possible. So, here's his lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed true that I am back here, and further, that I am pleased to be back here. It is also true that I scheduled this lecture on the S-matrix, yet my lecture instead is more related to the literary aspect of the physics discoveries of recent years, to which I will add, improbably, the probable next broad theorem, known as the inept theory, brought to you in large part with all due credit to my number one assistant in my laboratory, Gunther Schmalhirsch, who, as I finalized my preparations for this paper, released, accidentally I have no doubt, for there is no room in German science for sabotage nor jealousies of the petty sort, more than 300 frogs of some variety, many of which, South American, a fine destination for a man of science, are deadly poisonous, which, as Gunther will attest, need not be shot through an Amazonian hollow root delivery system arrow and blowhard to kill a room of humans, perhaps a number of which this room has its fill. That is to say, things got hot in the lab, and we had to, as the Americans say, skedaddle the fuck out of there. Now, some of you in these war-ravaged days will be wondering, Werner, dear, are you working on a secret weapon, something that will end this horrible and unjust war? And my answer is that weaponizing frog venom is the work of engineers and logisticians, not physicists. For we are in, allow me to say, the business of understanding life rather than determining methods for ending it. On another hand, and of course we all know it is but mere chance that we have been given but two, understanding life absolutely includes the study of war. For that is the very perversion of the simple view of life to which I subscribe, that it is a condition we have no precise idea as to its origins, nor the motives of the creatures of life to attempt to live in the condition of life until no longer able, which is to reach the status known as death. In war, we know two sides are bent on hastening the process of a different tribe of the same species with no scientifically different differences toward a quicker death. How is a physicist to explain such a phenomenon? The S-matrix? Not yet. Not yet. Nor am I a man of leisure given over to philosophizing, which means I have not the liberty to apply my scientific brain to this question. However, now and then, we human beings are subject to what are called epiphanics, which for you Christian scientists out there means no more than holiday greetings, but to a linguist means revelations, which to you Christian scientists out there means the apocalyptic ending of your rather inconsistent epic. But to the physicist merely suggests the appearance of insight from an unknown origin. You can bet your, as a guy in Copenhagen once said to me, you can bet your Heinrich, wordplay you see, Heinrich short for Heine, from the Jesuit for buttocks, the U.S. English for ass or bottom, that is to say but. So you can bet your Heinrich, suggesting success in the offing, that if Jesus was whispering revelations to us physicists before a week was up, we'd have him in a glass kettle boiling, Bunsenly burning till he let out his secrets. Or, as Gunther might point out, 3 hours in a terrarium with an Amazonian tree frog, and we'd have the slippery one pinned down. So we are discussing the secular epiphanic, and specifically my own case, which occurred on an odd day in which the heat was off in the laboratory, and an English magazine brought into the laboratory, yes, that's right, we do, and that's where, change one letter and you get shit instead of brains, and in that magazine was an article on what, as of last summer, is known in history as the Zoot Suit Riots. A brief re-encounter with the events as we know them. The United States, as you may know, has a large number of people who have what is colloquial, if falsely referred to, as colored skin. These are Africans who were invited to the United States in order to work without pay and kept in chains. Many are of Oriental ancestry, mostly known for their work on railroads, generally not as foremen. And finally, there are Mexican Americans, who are known as Mexicans, though most of them were living there in their native environment, which underwent a change in provenance. We must posit a certain lapse in time must pass before peoples of various hues develop a feeling of fellowship toward one another. A separate lecture will have to treat of the issue of religion and our disengagement with the Jewish peoples. In the United States, your Swede and your Italian are much like our Prussian and our Black Foresters. Germans all, and no question of it. Meanwhile, the colored people have yet to be acknowledged as fully American and of the United States version, yet they live in the United States in large numbers. This gives rise to confusion, misunderstanding, and, importantly in this case, different styles of dress. Already clearly not of genial U.S. American stock, these colored people, generally among the poorer lumpen proletariat as some social scientists would categorize them, form their own sub-tribes, which are mistaken by the dominant colored people, the white, quote, as actual different tribes. War becomes a matter of great confusion. Both the color and the style of dress mark these sub-tribes as different, and though as scientists we know that the enemy of the white American is the German, many of the white Americans are apt to succumb to convenience, looking just across the street, as it were, to find their enemy. Look here at our illustration. This is a Mexican. Certainly we all know such a, what we shall call an Alfred, our friend Alfred, who to our first glance appears to be Hungarian, yet is as much a German as we are. This Alfred is a Mexican, what is given the color brown. Alfred the Mexican is wearing a zoot suit. Note the high-waisted pants and the lengthy suit jacket. Such are the primary characteristics of the zoot suit. This costume was adopted by the African or Negro and the Mexican. The white man does not wear this costume. Hence, even a reverse Alfred, a Mexican who looks like any other white man in his nakedness, when he adopts this dress, has become a member of a different tribe, effectively, in the minds of the dominant members of the tribe. Let me answer two of your questions with one anecdote. I have read of a Negro jazz musician, a wearer of suit zoot, who, when asked about his garb and why he was not wearing the uniform of war, replied, "Why would I wear a uniform to fight the Germans? I never even met a German." Of course, exceptions exist, just as in our army. Or not, how would I know, a mere scientist? However, in the Army of the United States, the brown, yellow, and let me say for the sake of convenience, black, are not common. But those soldiers who see these people when they return to Los Angeles after trying times in war against the Japanese or Germans remain in a state of alert, and when they see members of a foreign tribe on their soil, revert into war mode. Such was the case last summer, when for nearly a week soldiers attacked people of all ages in zoot suits, mistaking them for the enemy. Even a physicist must have a sense of humor, particularly because we must needs view the life of humanity unflinchingly. That makes for some flinch-worthy viewing. You will forget this out of your drive for eternal life, a matter of survival. But not only do we know the fate of the individual, we have also come to know the fate of mankind in general as of this, the year 1944, and the plain fact is that, epiphanically speaking, the world as you know it will come to an end before the horsemen apocalyptically arrive. Which leads me to append to the mundane thought that none of us want war, the rather fantastic notion that if I were to advise our Führer, I would dress the troops in zoot suits and land them on the coasts of the United States, where the Germans would be confused with Mexicans, and in that the vast minority of Mexicans survived the beatings, not shootings, mind you. Before long, the fear that is at root of sub-tribal skirmishing, that of being taken over, swarmed, if you will, would easily be made real. Only not Mexicans, but primarily Germans in zoot suits would be the majority of U.S. Americans. Equally amusing is the thought of zoot suit brigades engaging in diversion maneuvers. What then is the overarching lesson the scientist takes from such an event as the zoot suit riot? That the concept of war, always taken by the scientist to be perverse, unless the scientist is under the sway of an emotional new social theory, is also quite complex, and that the human being itself is far too complex for us to apply our standard notions of warfare to it. Let me take a shortcut. Our leaders call for war. They have created an army. The army must be motivated. Thrashing has been proven in laboratories to be of short duration as a motivating force. So the higher levels of thought must be manipulated. The level of idea beyond the level of any idea that admits of examination of the actual nature of the behavior of the human at war, one must not under any conditions demand military action that we may once and for all cure the Pole of his habit of wearing striped underwear. Now, living space, that is a good one. Essentially, the soldier of the United States of America is fighting zoot-suited sub-tribals to prevent them from moving into their living rooms. We all require a space in which to live. We will fight for that space. We will commit atrocities to protect our habitat. Look back there. Stand up, Gunther. Ladies and gentlemen, ask that man of the frog debacle if we ceded our living space to poisonous Amazonian frogs and a few leopard frogs we inherited from a laboratory that has closed for the duration of the war. Did we cede our space to poisonous frogs, Gunther, or did we retreat, gather our weapons, safe anti-frog gas in canisters, to convey the notion to you laymen and go back in and exterminate every single one of them? I hope we got them all, Gunther cries from the back. Thank you, Gunther. And ladies and gentlemen, I bid you good night and look forward to next year's lecture on the S-matrix or the latest news story as seen through the eyes of the physicist. Applause.